Stop right there. That floor's restricted. You need to leave. The words snapped like a whip across the polished marble lobby. Sharp. Loud. Final. Brad Hastings didn't whisper. He didn't ask. He commanded. His hand gripped the woman's arm, firm and unapologetic, like he was pulling an intruder out of sacred ground. To him, she didn't belong. Not in that elevator. Not in that building. Not in that suit. Or the skin she was born in. Janelle Brooks didn't speak. Not at first. The lobby, once a quiet hum of morning movement, turned electric. Phones paused mid-scroll. Conversations froze. Somewhere behind the desk, a young man looked up, eyes narrowing. Brad's fingers still pressed into the sleeve of her coat. Janelle looked at his hand, then at his face. Unbothered. Unflinching. Unmoved. Brad raised his voice, maybe for backup, maybe for validation. I said, step away from the elevator. That floor's off limits to non-residents. Still, she said nothing. Because silence can be louder than screams. And power, real power, doesn't always announce itself. She turned, slow, deliberate, meeting his eyes for the first time. I'm sorry, she said quietly, calm as stone. Are you sure you want to continue this? Brad blinked, confused by her tone, threatened by her stillness. He tightened his grip. That was his second mistake. Because the first was thinking she was nobody. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change. And we're glad you're here. Now, back to Janelle. She wasn't wearing a name tag. She didn't need one. There was no security badge clipped to her blazer. No lanyard. No title. Just a charcoal coat, black slacks, and a calm, lethal energy that made the air feel heavier the moment she stepped through the revolving door. Janelle Brooks had walked into the Lennox Tower lobby at exactly 8:03 a.m. alone. Unannounced. Deliberate. No driver. No assistant. No Mrs. Brooks from the front desk. She carried only a slim leather folio and a phone. No case. No stickers. No noise. From the outside, she looked like any other tenant. Except she wasn't. 6 months earlier, her holding company had acquired the entire Lennox commercial portfolio. The building. The businesses. The staff. All under silent control. Today was an inspection. Unscheduled. Untelegraphed. She wanted to see the lobby raw. See how they handled presence without pretext. She'd learned long ago. How you're treated when they don't know your title says more than any board report ever could. Brad, the building manager, hadn't recognized her. Of course he hadn't. To men like Brad, respect wore certain clothes. Talked with a certain tone. Looked a certain way. And Janelle? She had learned to weaponize expectation. Because the quieter her entrance, the louder their mistake. She moved like someone who'd done this before, because she had. At 19, she was kicked out of a luxury showroom because the clerk said she looked lost. At 27, a regional director asked her to fetch coffee, mistaking her for an intern. She fetched no coffee. And now, at 42, she didn't need to raise her voice. She owned the lease under his feet. But this morning wasn't about confrontation. It was about confirmation. So when Brad grabbed her arm, loud, entitled, and proud, she didn't flinch. She let the moment unfold. She let the lobby watch. She let the weight of his assumptions do the talking. Because when power is patient, it's already one move ahead. Brad didn't let go, not even when she looked at him. Still, sharp, like a courtroom in session. If anything, her calm unnerved him more. Because men like Brad were used to fear. Or fury. Not this silence. He squeezed harder. You think I'm playing? He barked, glancing toward the front desk. Call security. Now. Luis, the junior concierge, hesitated, eyes darting between the two. He'd seen tenants argue before. But this felt different. Brad snapped again. Luis. The young man reached for the phone, fingers unsure. I'm going to need ID. Brad continued, loud enough for the entire lobby to hear. You can't just walk in off the street and head to the penthouse. Penthouse. He said it like a fortress. Like a place someone like her couldn't possibly belong. Janelle shifted her weight. Just slightly, but never stepped back. Never looked down. Just breathed in once, slow and measured. You should let go of my coat, she said. But Brad didn't. He waved over another staff member. Kyle, a security temp with too much muscle and not enough training. Escort her out, Brad ordered, pointing as if swatting a fly. Kyle stepped forward, posture stiff, waiting for the signal. She has no ID. No clearance. No name in the system, Brad continued. Janelle said nothing. Because why argue with a man mid-downfall? From the corner, Ava, a tenant in workout clothes, earbuds hanging loose, began filming quietly. Her phone glinted as the screen captured the scene. She wasn't sure what this was yet, but her gut told her it was something. The lobby air turned heavy, the kind of silence that hums before a storm. Louise finally spoke, voice unsure. Brad, maybe we should check her name first. Just in case. Brad turned. She refused to give it. Janelle finally spoke again. I never said that. Brad's mouth twitched. She tilted her head slightly. I said I'd wait to see how far you'd take this. And there it was, the shift. A flicker behind his eyes. Doubt. Or maybe recognition. Of something he hadn't expected. But he didn't back down. Not yet. You've got one chance, Brad hissed. Step outside, or I'll have you trespassed. That word. Trespassed. In a building she owned. Janelle folded her arms. The sleeve he had gripped now smooth and free. Then do what you must, she said softly. Because she already had. Kyle hesitated. He looked at Brad, then at the woman who hadn't raised her voice once. Something didn't feel right. She didn't look like a threat. She didn't even move like someone in trouble. She stood still, balanced, like the floor recognized her weight. Brad didn't notice. Or maybe he did, and that's why he barked louder. You're going to make me call the police over this? For your sake, I hope that coat's not stolen. Louise blinked. Ava's camera kept rolling. Kyle's hand hovered near his walkie. Still, Janelle didn't move. She just looked at Brad the way one might study a crack in the wall, a flaw that says more about the structure than the surface. I suggest you stop talking, she said. Not a threat, not a plea, a verdict. But Brad laughed. Right. Like you're in charge of anything. She gave a small nod. No words. Not yet. Because dignity doesn't need defense. And justice, when it's real, doesn't rush. That silence, that stillness, worked. It stretched across the lobby like a courtroom pause. Made the air feel heavier, thicker. Made everyone pay attention. Louise shifted behind the desk, whispering to a colleague. Did she say her name yet? Ava leaned slightly forward, phone steady, whispering to herself. She's calm. Too calm. Kyle's walkie crackled with static. He didn't touch it, because something in the air said, don't be the next mistake. Janelle looked at the building directory behind the front desk, polished chrome letters reflecting the morning light. Her name wasn't there. Not publicly. That was intentional. Power, when real, doesn't need a plaque. Brad stepped closer again, trying to puff himself up, fill the space between them. You people love making drama, don't you? He muttered, quieter now. But not today. Janelle raised an eyebrow. What exactly do you mean by you people? He didn't answer, just tightened his jaw. Kyle took a step back. The lobby was no longer his stage. It was hers, and she hadn't even raised her voice yet. Ava didn't stop filming. Something about the stillness of the woman, the way she never once blinked at the chaos unfolding around her, kept her camera trained, steady. She whispered to herself, this ain't normal. In her 20-something years living in this building, she'd seen noise complaints, couples arguing, even one guy trying to sneak a dog into a no-pet floor. But this? A woman in silence being treated like a suspect? That hit different. Luis, still behind the desk, was sweating. He kept glancing between Brad and the elevator, the one marked P for penthouse. You sure you don't want to check her name? He muttered. Brad hissed through his teeth. She's stalling. Probably fake credentials. That folio's empty. Classic play. Janelle didn't look at him. Didn't look at Luis. Didn't flinch. Instead, she stepped forward, slowly, 1 foot into the elevator threshold. Kyle tensed. Ava held her breath. And then Brad reached again, arm out, trying to block her path. That's when Luis moved. He didn't leap, didn't shout. But he stepped from behind the desk, 2 steps forward, palms out. Brad, he said, voice low but firm. She hasn't done anything. Brad turned on him. Are you seriously taking her side? I'm not taking sides. I'm saying she hasn't even raised her voice. Brad barked a laugh. You're young. You'll learn. People like her, people like who? Ava's voice sliced through the air, louder now, from behind her phone. Everyone turned. Even Kyle. Ava stepped closer, her phone still filming. You've been grabbing her. Accusing her. Calling security. But you haven't even asked her name. Brad scoffed. She's clearly. No, Ava cut in. She's clearly calm. And you're the one yelling. Luis took another step forward. I think we should pause. Just for a second. This doesn't feel right. Janelle turned to look at him. Just briefly. No words. Only a nod. That was all Luis needed. Brad shook his head. Don't let the cameras fool you. She's trespassing. You'll all see. But the lobby had already seen enough. And Ava? She pressed record harder. Brad stepped back, but only to gather steam. You're all being manipulated, he snapped, voice rising now. She's here to cause trouble. These people, they know how to perform. The room stiffened. Kyle shifted his weight. Luis's jaw locked. Ava's eyes narrowed behind the lens. She hasn't said 5 sentences since walking in. Ava shot back. And you're the one performing. Brad ignored her. He pointed at Janelle, practically shouting now. She's not in the system. She's refusing to show ID. She assaulted me first by entering a restricted space. A lie. Loud. Deliberate. Luis stepped forward. She didn't even touch you. Brad turned on him. You're done. After this, you'll be lucky to hand out flyers. Then he looked at Kyle. Well, what are you waiting for? Kyle hesitated. He looked at Janelle. She didn't flinch. Again. She just looked up at the security camera in the corner of the lobby, letting it record, letting the system see. Every second. Every word. I'm calling the police, Brad said. And when they get here, I'll tell them she threatened staff and attempted to breach private access. A sharp inhale came from Ava's direction. You're fabricating a report now? She asked, half in shock. Brad didn't answer, because he was already dialing. 911. What's your emergency? Came the voice on the other end. Brad turned his body away, but not fast enough. Janelle spoke, low and clear. Make sure they know this is being filmed, and that the building owner is on site. Brad froze. Not for long, but long enough to show it landed. Then he turned to Kyle. Detain her. Now. Kyle stepped forward. On what grounds? She's a threat, Brad spat. She's trespassing. Refusing orders. This is a legal matter now. But even Kyle could feel it. This wasn't a scene. This was a setup. And not the one Brad thought it was. Ava's phone caught everything. The angle. The tone. The moment Brad's voice cracked just enough to show fear, not of Janelle, but of being wrong. Janelle, still silent, reached into her folio. Not fast. Not dramatic. Just deliberate. She pulled out a phone, sleek, black, screen still dark. She tapped once, then held it to her ear. Marcy, she said calmly. Please activate the Lennox protocol. We've got a situation. Then she added, after a pause. Yes. Let them keep talking. It's all being logged. And with that, she lowered the phone. Still calm. Still unbothered. Because she wasn't here to argue. She was here to remember. The call hadn't even ended when Brad lunged forward. No warning. No hesitation. Just rage disguised as authority. His hand snatched Janelle's phone midair, ripping it clean from her grip. The slap of contact echoed through the lobby like a gunshot. Not loud, but deafening. Luis gasped. Ava cursed. Kyle stepped back, instinctively. Brad raised the phone above his head, like some twisted trophy. This is what they do, he barked. They record, they intimidate, and they lie. Janelle's eyes didn't widen. Her breath didn't hitch. But something shifted. The lobby felt it. That calm, the kind she'd held like armor, didn't crack. It sharpened. She spoke for the first time in minutes. Low. Precise. You just committed theft and battery. In front of witnesses. And on company property. Brad rolled his eyes. You don't own anything here. You're just a woman in a coat trying to look important. Ava's voice came from behind her phone. She doesn't have to look important. She just has to press charges. Luis moved around the desk. I'm logging this incident. Right now. Brad whipped around, furious. You think corporate's going to care? I've been here 12 years. You too. He pointed at Luis and Ava. You're nobodies. And then, he took it one step further. He shoved Janelle back. It wasn't a tackle. Not dramatic. But it was a shove. And in that moment, the exact second her balance shifted, something fundamental in the air cracked. Kyle stepped forward fast. Brad, that's enough. Ava dropped her phone to her side. Are you serious? Luis's voice shook. I'm calling the general manager. This is out of control. Janelle adjusted her stance. Straightened her coat. Didn't touch Brad. Didn't yell. But when she looked up, eyes steady. But before he could touch the screen, it lit up. An incoming call. Marcy, active. Brad stared at it. Froze. Then, Janelle said 2 words. Put it down. Not loud, not dramatic, but every syllable landed like a gavel. Brad hesitated, and in that hesitation, the scales tipped. The room no longer belonged to him. It never did. The phone in Brad's hand vibrated again. This time, the screen flashed a message in bold letters. Linux owner access. Live feed enabled. Brad stared at it, confused. What is this? Janelle extended her hand, calm as ever. Return the phone. He didn't move, so she didn't wait. Instead, she tapped her wrist, a sleek band beneath her sleeve, and spoke. Marcy, confirm control link. From the phone in Brad's hand, a voice answered. Confirmed. All building access logs, elevator records, and lobby camera feeds are active and syncing to secure boardroom server. Do you want to proceed with Phase 2? Brad blinked. What the hell is Phase 2? Janelle looked him dead in the eye. You're about to find out. He dropped the phone. Literally. Like it burned him. It clattered against the floor, screen still glowing. Kyle stepped back again, shaking his head. Luis was already texting someone behind the desk. Ava whispered, this is not a drill. Janelle picked up the phone, not rushed, not flustered. She wiped the screen once with her thumb and spoke. Marcy, initiate Phase 2. Marcy's voice returned. Locking down restricted access. Suspending building manager login. Dispatching compliance team from HQ. ETA, 6 minutes. Brad turned pale. You can't do that. You're bluffing. Janelle didn't even look at him. She walked toward the front desk, slowly, deliberately. Each step echoed with intent. Louise stepped aside without a word. She set the phone on the counter, looked up at the building directory again, the one where her name still wasn't listed. Then she turned back to Brad. You said I didn't belong here. Brad tried to recover his posture. I was following protocol. You refused ID. You were acting suspicious. That's what this is about. Janelle nodded, just once. Marcy, she said, please list the violations of today's encounter. Marcy responded without pause. Unauthorized physical contact. Theft of personal property. Verbal misconduct. False report to authorities. Breach of ADA anti-bias policy. Obstruction of internal audit protocol. The lobby fell silent. Kyle looked down. Ava looked stunned. Luis just whispered, oh my God. Janelle turned toward the elevator. Marcy, restore owner elevator access. A soft chime echoed as the elevator doors behind her slid open. Brad stepped forward one last time. You're not? You can't be. Janelle finally turned fully toward him. I am. Then she stepped into the elevator. Didn't look back. Didn't explain. Didn't need to. Because justice wasn't something she begged for. It was something she built. And now, she was activating it, floor by floor. The elevator doors stayed open, waiting, like they knew whose presence triggered them. Janelle turned halfway, eyes landing on Brad for the last time. You really want to know who I am? She asked. He didn't answer. He couldn't. So she told him. Calm. Unshaken. Final. I'm Janelle Brooks, CEO of Oakhaven Holdings, the company that acquired this building and 5 others in the Lenox district 6 months ago. Gasps flickered through the lobby. Ava lowered her phone, slowly. Luis's jaw parted slightly. Kyle whispered, no way. Brad looked like he'd been hit. You know? You're lying. Janelle stepped out of the elevator and walked toward the front desk again. No rush. No need. She tapped the terminal screen, typed a 6-digit code. And then, right there on the building's admin dashboard, owner, Janelle Brooks, Oakhaven Holdings flashed in bold white letters across the staff display. Luis covered his mouth. Kyle muttered a stunned, Jesus. Brad staggered a step back. Ava caught it all. Filming again. Janelle didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She just stood, unmoved, steady. Because this moment wasn't about revenge. It was about truth. You grabbed me, she said quietly. You humiliated me. Called the police. Lied. In a building I own. On a floor I pay taxes on. With a team I employ. Brad stammered. There was no record. Because I wasn't here to be seen, she cut in. I was here to see you. That stopped him. I conduct unannounced audits. It's how I weed out liability. People who don't deserve the keys they were handed. Brad flushed red. Okay, I get it. No, she said. You don't. Because if you did, you'd never have laid hands on a black woman in silence and called it protocol. Silence gripped the lobby like a chokehold. Janelle looked toward Ava. Did you get that part? Ava's voice was soft but sure. Every word. Janelle nodded. Then looked at Luis. Thank you for stepping in. Your instincts were right. HR will reach out. Louise swallowed hard. Yes, ma'am. And then, finally, she looked back at Brad. Now you know who I am, she said. But more importantly, she paused. You know who you are. She turned, stepped into the elevator, and as the doors began to close, she left him with one final line. Make peace with the cameras. They remember better than you do. Ding. The doors shut, and the floor under Brad's feet didn't feel like his anymore. Because it wasn't. The elevator had only just closed, but the ripple had already begun. Ava lowered her phone slowly, her mouth still open. She whispered, mostly to herself, but loud enough for others to hear. She's the owner. She owns everything. Luis looked frozen in place, his hand still hovering over the keyboard. Brooks. Oakhaven. That's why IT was syncing with a protected board server. He turned to Kyle. You realize what just happened, right? Kyle nodded, barely. Yeah. We just watched Brad end his own career. Brad stood still, motionless, like a statue of denial. His face was pale, sweat on his forehead, lips dry. No. This isn't how this works, he muttered. But no one was listening anymore. From the far corner, a tenant stepped out of the waiting area, middle-aged man in a navy suit. She owns the building? He asked Ava. Ava nodded slowly. I filmed the whole thing. She showed the system login. Her name's in the back end. Another resident leaned out from the hallway. Are we talking about Janelle Brooks? From that Forbes cover? Luis replied, yes. That Janelle. Whispers became murmurs. Murmurs became voices. The entire lobby was turning into a live forum. One woman pulled up her phone and Googled fast. Oh my God, she gasped. Oakhaven Holdings just closed a $320 million redevelopment deal downtown. That's her company. Kyle exhaled hard. I told you the calm wasn't normal. That wasn't someone who hopes she belongs. Luis looked at Brad now. No pity. No fear. Just a quiet, justified stare. You messed up, he said. Brad backed away from the center of the lobby, eyes darting for some sort of control, a phone, a policy, a lie to cling to. But there was nothing left. He reached for the desk, trying to open the admin panel. Locked. A red banner scrolled across the screen. Access suspended. Owner override in progress. He stepped back again, shoulders rising. This is a setup. You're all buying into a scam. Ava laughed under her breath. You grabbed the CEO on camera, called the cops, and now you're blaming the mirror. A security chime echoed. Then came Marcy's voice again, through the lobby speaker. This is a compliance alert. A corporate representative will arrive on site within 4 minutes. Please prepare all personnel logs for review. Luis turned slowly toward Brad. You might want to pack your things. Someone clapped. Soft. From the left. Then another. Then a few more. Not a roar, but a reckoning. Brad turned toward the sound, desperate for control, but all he saw was faces. Some filming. Some watching. All remembering. And not one of them on his side. The clapping faded into a heavy silence. A silence not of peace, but of consequence. Brad stood in the middle of the lobby like a man waking up too late from a dream, only to find the damage was real. Then came the next chime. Ding. The elevator reopened. And she returned. Janelle stepped out. Still silent. Still flawless. But this time, she wasn't alone. Behind her walked 2 individuals in dark gray suits, corporate compliance officers. Badges clipped. Tablets in hand. Eyes scanning. Brad backed up instinctively. Janelle didn't look at him. She walked to the desk and addressed Luis directly. Please step aside for system authorization. Luis nodded, moved without hesitation. One of the officers, a woman with steel gray hair, tapped a code into the terminal. Immediately, the screen flickered. Security override, executive clearance. Marcy's voice came through once more, now across the lobby speakers. Building manager, Bradley J. Hastings. Status, suspended. Access, terminated. The screen turned red. Brad gasped. No, this isn't legal. You can't just, actually, the gray-haired officer said calmly. We can. Per clause 4.12 of your contract, violation of anti-discrimination policy and unauthorized use of force are grounds for immediate dismissal. The other officer added, and since your access was used to disable owner credentials and trigger a false security report, we've also flagged your badge under escalation protocol. Brad looked down at his own keycard, gripped tight in his hand. It blinked red. Then a buzz. A soft hum. Then silence. He tried to scan it at the backdoor reader. Nothing. Dead. Ava whispered to Luis. Did he just get fired on the spot? Luis didn't respond. He just stared. Because now the corporate rep was speaking again. We've also logged Ms. Brooks' recording of the encounter, synced with Ava's video and the lobby's overhead footage. Legal will review this as part of our quarterly compliance audit. You're no longer permitted on site. Brad's mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. Janelle finally turned to face him. You said earlier, you people know how to perform. She let it hang in the air. Then added, you're right. I do. I perform audits. I perform restructurings. I perform exits. Brad stepped back. I didn't know. I was just, she held up a hand. I don't need your apology. I need your absence. He stood frozen. So she turned to the officer. Please escort Mr. Hastings off the property. Lock all building credentials. His name will not appear on any future Linux staffing reports. The officer nodded. Understood. Kyle stepped aside as the officers approached Brad. For the first time all morning, he didn't resist. He looked smaller now. Not physically, but spiritually. A man shrunk by the weight of his own assumptions. As he was led toward the exit, Janelle turned to Ava. Thank you for recording. You didn't have to, but you did. Ava smiled, still a bit in shock. Honestly, I wasn't sure why I started, but now, I'm glad I did. Janelle nodded. Then to Luis. You kept your integrity under pressure. That matters. Luis looked up. Thank you, ma'am. I saw what was wrong. She looked at both of them. Justice isn't loud. It's consistent. And then, turning back toward the elevator, she said the words that would stay long after the doors closed. Let this building remember what happens when you mistake silence for submission. The elevator closed for the second and final time. No applause. No dramatic music. Just the quiet hum of systems falling back into place. But the lobby would never be the same. Luis stood still, fingers hovering over the desk like it had become sacred. Ava saved the video to her cloud twice. Once for herself, once for history. Kyle exhaled, hands on hips, whispering, damn. In 10 minutes, everything changed. Not with screaming, not with threats, but with precision, with timing, with truth, and with a black woman who knew the weight of her silence. Upstairs, Janelle Brooks entered the executive lounge. No one greeted her. No one had to. The space knew who she was. She'd made sure of it. Floor-to-ceiling glass let the city shine back at her. Below, traffic moved. People hurried. Emails sent. Meetings began. But here, above it all, she sat alone for a moment. Not to gloat, but to center. She took a slow sip of tea, closed her eyes, breathed. Because this wasn't new. This wasn't the first time she'd been doubted, mishandled, dismissed. It was just the latest. And every time, she chose the same response. Not rage, not spectacle, but strategy. Let them show you who they are first. Then act. Let them overreach. Let them document their own downfall. Because there's nothing more satisfying than truth unfolding on its own timeline. She picked up her phone. Checked the notification. Ava_media. Uploading now, full footage backed up. Then another. Legal. Terminated. Non-contestable. Then one more, from her assistant, Marcy. Would you like to issue a public statement? She stared at it. Then typed back. No statement needed. The footage is the statement. She leaned back, eyes still on the skyline. Let the city move around her. She didn't need to scream to be heard. She didn't need to announce her power to own it. Because dignity doesn't yell. It just walks back into the room and changes everything.